Have we had any gotcha moments on here?
It's happened to me 3 times already in this show. I've been got.
Is it all of us? Is it mostly men?
Yeah, it's mostly men.
Okay. Did you just fart? All right, this is the Jason Hedrick Show. We have been on quite a hiatus. It's been, when I looked it up, it said our last one was about 7 months ago. And I'm not really sure why we went on this. Any guesses, Mage, Kurt? Why we stopped for a while?
Procrastination and laziness.
Get up on that mic.
Procrastination and laziness.
Yeah. And you guys came at me a few times to do it, and I just, I don't know. I was really happy with the last one, so we should have piggybacked right away, but we didn't. And then I kind of came at you guys and said, instead of rounding up a couple guests every time, maybe it'd be easier if we just got one guest and just kind of honed in on that one guest instead of, because it was always a hassle trying to round up 2 people. So Major got this guest, who you know Joe. I've never met him. I've seen him actually one other time at a get together, but this is the first time I met him. So Joe Wallace, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, and that time was probably one of Major's parties that he has in January. I assume,
those
or
are
downtown.
Top secret.
Yeah. Oh, never mind.
and we don't really have like a total. You have to be a certain way to be a guest, but Major said that the element that you would bring to us is you're definitely a Trump guy. So would you agree with that characterization? That
Yeah, I would.
I mean, from the get-go, you liked him.
You know what? I can't say that.
Okay. Okay. At some point, you liked him.
But this is prior him running for president.
Right.
I could not stand The Apprentice. I thought he was a narcissist, and he is a narcissist.
We'll get into the Trump
but
thing. But I mean, you did like him. At some point, you said, "I'm voting for this guy," and you still, to this point, still are glad.
I still stand by him.
Right. And we'll get deeper into that. But that's pretty much what you bring to the table. All right. So because I really honestly don't know you, I prepared some questions to rate your Trumpness. So we need truth here. Do you think Hillary should be in jail? That's just yes or no.
No, her losing the election.
So no.
No.
Okay, we're judging your Trumpness. That's
Okay.
not a very good Trump answer. Okay.
Yeah, I know the whole lock her up.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe that we should have a wall?
Yes.
And Mexico is going to pay for it.
I believe that we should have a wall.
Okay.
Now, do I?
Just look? I got more of these. We'll get deeper
Okay.
into this.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know we've only asked 2 questions. I'm starting to doubt your Trumpness. You've kind of been reasonable on 2 answers. So hold on. Number 3, did the Russians influence the elections on the behalf of for the benefit of Trump?
From what I've understand at this point right now, no, not in a significant way.
Okay. Might have to come back to that.
Okay.
The Mueller investigation, you believe it should be happening or not should be happening?
At this point, no. He should be finished by now.
Okay. At one point, they were having rallies in Charlottesville to take down a statue, and then the Nazis showed up, and then protesters against the Nazis showed up, and the president said there are good people on both sides. Do you agree that there were good people on both sides?
You had spectators come out there that weren't either or of pro taking down statues or we're going to leave these up and you're going to have to go through us to get them down type of people. That event in itself was advertised. Hey, this is going to go down. This is
you understand what he's saying when he says there's good people on both sides.
Yeah, I think it is, and it all comes down to
how there's blame on both sides too.
Absolutely. Look at the aftermath of.
I got you.
Okay.
Do you President Trump was one of the first presidents, well, in my lifetime, he was the only president in my lifetime that didn't show us his taxes before he was the president. Are you okay with that? You think there's no need?
I did not know that.
Do you think he should have showed his taxes like the other ones, or that's not really something that matters?
Well, when you say other ones, he wasn't the first not to.
Well,
in modern day politics, it's happened. Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been something that's been around since George Washington. But I mean, it's been 40 or 50 years. I don't recall it ever happening where the guy just
got
said,
smart enough to say, "I'm not going to show my taxes."
And it was, It was Mitt Romney's father was the one that kind of went above and beyond of setting the standard. He released. He said, "You can't judge me in 1 year of my taxes." So he released gobs of years of his taxes. And they said, "Now judge me," because he was happy. Anyway,
Well, the fact that it's not required, as I understand.
right, you're right. No,
to run for president.
It's absolutely not required.
Then that's on him how
It's
to
his-
do whether either or.
I got you. Obamacare. Do you feel like we should get rid of it?
Yes.
Do you feel we should actually keep it, just call it Trump care, and then give Trump credit when it works?
No. I think
He's not a Trump guy.
Well, I think Obamacare was not what it was advertised to be, and I feel that Obamacare or Affordable Care Health Care Act, in a sense, was supposed to fail just so we can get onto single payer.
I don't. Yeah, we'll get seriously. We'll get into all of those. I don't think that's. I mean, from your position, I don't think that's a crazy position. I don't at all. The Access Hollywood tapes. Do you feel like that's just locker room talk? That if we would all be heard saying stuff like that, if we all were secretly mic'd up?
If you let me paraphrase what that quote was. When you're famous, they let you grab them by the pussy, right?
Right.
Okay. That would tell me consent in a sense. Not when you're famous, you go and grab them. It's the let part that can be subjective.
Okay.
According to who
Well,
you
okay,
wanted to.
well, you said if you're famous. So let's just say, do you think that if every single dude like that or every guy even that you don't know,
Honestly, it's tasteless. But
I'm
I
saying,
mean,
do
that's
you
what.
think if every single person was secretly mic'd up, do you think you would hear that kind of stuff? I mean, I get you that we heard the president, he's famous and all that, and we heard him say it. But I'm saying, if you just secretly mic'd up the average guy, do you think you would hear that kind of talk? Because it was described as just locker room talk, and I'm just curious, do you think that if we did mic up every person, you would hear that kind of talk?
I'd hear it at least once or twice. I'd hear it more if a friend of ours was still around. But
So most people,
but for
wouldn't-
most people have some have some decency, has that filter where
I got you. Most
They
people
don't-
wouldn't say
yeah,
it.
most people
but
wouldn't,
some people
yeah.
certainly would. Do you think tariffs are a good thing?
well, that depends because I haven't really looked into
Are you cool with him, the president, doing tariffs the way he's doing it?
so far it's worked out for us.
Cool.
We'll see. We'll see.
Last one.
When's the waterboarding start?
That's Brian. The very last one. Do you like Roseanne Barr and dislike Rosie O'Donnell?
I could say yes.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. You seemed pretty reasonable about your stuff. I mean, obviously.
You're not.
But I mean, and you on it, like if you didn't know it, you're like, I don't know that much about it. I totally appreciate that answer. So, I'll hit back on a couple of these. You're like, you didn't score like a 10 out of 10. You're not like Trump fan #1 or like, I have a buddy of ours that like, he threw out all of his Nike socks, like for real. Like he got rid of all of them. Would you ever do that?
He got rid
Did
of
you
his
do that?
pest control man, too.
I'm wearing Air Maxes right now because I love them so much.
Yeah, I mean, he threw out all of his Nike.
And he got rid of his
and,
pest control man simply because the single, hard-working, independent business owner wasn't really quite a Trump
Do we
supporter.
know for sure that's why that you're not doing it
Sure,
anymore?
he just said
Peck?
it on a top-rated podcast.
Peck?
Oh, you're asking me?
Well,
No,
you're-
I'm not sure that that's the reason.
Do you
I don't
think
think that's the reason. I hope that's not the reason.
Have you ever heard
That was
why
like
you're
three
not doing it
answers.
anymore?
That was like three different answers. Like,
They're all the same.
no, it first of all, I asked if that's the reason or not, and then you said,
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think it is. I hope it's not. Which I think you hope
Which
it
means
not.
your service sucks. We hope it doesn't.
But it is possible. It's not impossible that the reason you're no longer doing his bug stuff is because you're not a Trump guy.
No, I don't know why. Like I said, I don't know why.
But he always met you at the door. His first thing out of his mouth was, how do you think Trump's doing, right?
Yes, that was the conversation.
And then one
usually.
time that when you showed up, he had all new socks that he had just got from the store
Yeah, that was funny.
because
was
he'd
so
just thrown out all of his Nike socks.
Yeah.
And then The very last
That's
time
crazy
you,
to me too.
Yeah, and the very
But that-
last time you did his service, you guys talked about Trump for a while, yes?
Yes.
And then you no longer do his service anymore, right?
He's taking the winter off. He said
Just
he's gonna
dude,
get back to me at
and
in
we
the
love
spring.
this guy. I mean,
Oh, he's cool, man.
We
yeah,
do.
yeah, I mean, we do. Like he's
He made
one
his
of,
money off the government with a very strong union, but he hates government unions.
yeah. Okay, so you weren't 10 out of 10 on that level. You're not like this guy, but
Sorry, Doyle. They
you-
pinned me down on that
Wow, he said his name.
Was that who we were talking
Wow,
about?
Doyle. I didn't know we were talking about Doyle. Doyle did that? Doyle who?
You just blurt out customers' names.
Do you know who
There's
Doyle
no
is?
privacy at Pest Control?
Doyle Sewell.
Doyle, the guy that used to be a fireman, he's retired. He was our first guest.
No, just Doyle.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're gonna be careful. You got any secrets? You got Brian doing your pest control. All right. Okay.
He told
So
you you were only-
here's what I'm gonna go with you. It's hard to get on any one topic because they all kind of circle back to Trump. So we'll just open the door for Trump, and I'll let you say what you want about him, and then we'll kind of maybe narrow in on some things. So go ahead, because you already mentioned this. At some point you didn't like him, but then you had some evolution to where you did like him, and now you still like him. So if you want, just walk us through where you got with this guy.
Strictly policy based. Sometimes you have to put aside the personality that you may not really understand. I always have this theory that when with billionaires, people with uber wealth, there's a complex to them where by and large they're assholes, because they have that FU money, and so you get that arrogance, you get that cockiness. So I get it. Now look, I don't expect to have dinner with that guy anytime soon, but I saw something at his rallies, keeping up, watching online or whatever, and he had a way of marketing that he could grab people's attention and say, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, just trust me, I'll get it done. And so far, with a lot of supporters like myself that are, he's kept his promises. Whether they're good policy or bad policy, time will tell, But I don't think that anybody, can really complain about, the employment rate right now. That can change in a hurry
what
because
promises has he kept that you think he's kept?
I know for a fact that he's making the VA better.
Okay.
And more to the point, within the VA or in any kind of government system, making the employees that making them accountable.
Do you feel like the wall promise has been kept?
Well, there's portions of it that's been built. Now, with what money, that's where he's got it from. I don't know if it came out of the military budget. I don't know how.
But and I get you
But-
on
but
the
it's-
politics
there's
and that he definitely has opposition and people don't want it built. I get that, but I'm
Mhm.
just saying, regardless of all of that, which I hear you, there's definitely people that aren't helping him out on him wanting to do it. I mean, he says he wants to do it, and I think if he had carte blanche to do it, he would. I believe that part of it. But I'm just saying, if you just judge it on, do you think that he's kept his promise on the wall, not because he's lied about that or he wouldn't do it, but just to this point, do you think that's been a success?
Well, we'll see, because he's 2 years in, right? And so, assuming that he's still going to be in office, which I think he will, in 2020, we're going to see how far along that has gotten, because we're coming up to a point right now with the government shutdown. Based on that fact alone, pretty much that's what it's coming down to. Just like last year was the DACA in the government shutdown. It's
Even though
it's politics.
you just
so.
feel like this is he's still fighting for it, and you're cool with how he's fighting for it.
Well, yeah, you saw
So
the
even-
sit-down meeting with Schumer and Pelosi.
So, yeah. So even though I would say I don't think he's fulfilled his promise on the wall, your position is the dude's still fighting for it as hard as he ever was, and I'm even if
But yeah,
he's just doing what he's got to do.
he needs the votes.
Yeah.
So that time will tell. Is he going to get the votes? I mean, right now, Congress is going to change in January. We
Right.
know that we're no longer the majority. Senate is slightly stronger,
Right.
but Senate doesn't do us any good if you can't get the votes in the House. I mean, that's how
What
the
about
process
his
works.
promise on Obamacare? Do you feel like he's fulfilled
Well,
that promise?
the major point that he did that I'm in favor for was the penalty. I got hit with that penalty. I couldn't afford health insurance because I was out of work.
He got rid of the mandate.
The mandate. Now you can still he left it up, as far as I'm concerned, or is what I believe is that he left it up to the states. Hey, if you can keep Obamacare if you want, but I'm going to get rid of this, the mandate.
Which kind of dismantles it, not totally, because the other part of it that still stays has stayed is the pre-existing conditions. But the kicker and why those things are related is the only reason we had the mandate is so we could pay for the other parts of it that we don't want to get rid of. That's where it gets complicated for me, because I know this is hard for a lot of my listeners to believe, but I'm fairly libertarian. And I said from day one, let me back up and set the record straight. I voted for Obama. It's the first time I voted for a Democrat in my life. I was on board with universal health care because I felt like we already had universal health care at some weird, inefficient, crazy way. We couldn't go to our hospitals using the way we were supposed to. Other people were using the hospitals. We were paying for that stuff anyway. I felt like we had universal health care, and I personally had nothing to show for it. So I got on board with something that kind of was against my conservative principles that I'd always had. And then when Obama does put in universal health care, and that's what he fights for his first couple years, I said from day one, even as a person that voted for him and as a person that supported universal health care, that mandate, the way that they set it up, was unconstitutional. That was my position at that time. I said it then. And then the judges, the courts came out and basically helped him out and said, it would be unconstitutional if it were what you say it is, but in reality it's a tax, and it's legal for you to do it with a tax. So I get you. I'm for it, and I just explained to you all the reasons I'm for it, but I don't think it's unreasonable to look at it from a conservative position and say that you're against the mandate. And you personally, you're saying it affected you, that you had to pay the fine for it. And is that your biggest objection to Obamacare?
To mine is, and I think a lot of voters,
What
once it hits you in the pocketbook,
yeah, but what
pretty
about
steeply,
just the idea that everybody has insurance? Is that you're for that, against that? It's not the government's role.
Well, we know this about insurance is if you look at the trend of prices of premiums, of deductibles, it has gone through the why. They don't explain that to you on the news, or it's hard to come by unless you want to just dig into,
Right. You're right. I mean, at minimum, it's complicated, and it's fair to say that most people don't know why. We assume it's greed, but we're told it's lawsuits. We're told it's
I
the cost of
asked a
medicine.
physician here in town if it's true that for every medical doctor that practices, that they needed 12 administrative assistants to actually, stay in line with regulations. With
I believe that,
and I just think that's a bit absurd.
I hear you, and I've at a very small level opened a business here with some other people, and I was just a very small part of it, and it was just amazing, the regulations on something as non-significant as the business we opened. So I couldn't even imagine what the regulations are when you're in the medical field. Yeah, I hear
because,
you.
Because stakes are a lot higher, and
Yeah.
I get that, but to a point, it's the bureaucracy is where you kind of have to point your finger. It's like, are they the ones that are partly responsible for?
But to me, I just don't know why we have. I'm not cool with the idea. Again, I say I'm libertarian. I'm not cool with the idea that a company profits off of people's health. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think doctors aren't going to get paid, and they should get paid well, and people in the medical field. I think they should.
I
still
wholeheartedly
make money,
agree.
But
Yeah.
I'm not on board with the idea of insurance companies for this reason. I'm down with insurance companies for your car, or if your home burns down, or if you're a stud athlete and you want to insure,
Your body,
future and
yeah.
stuff like that. I mean, insurance serves a purpose. I just don't like the idea of insurance for people's health. So again, as a libertarian, I think that's why I was kind of on board with the idea of universal health care. It's like, if I'm going to pay taxes, which I think that's certainly a tax, I'm not arguing that I want something to show for the taxes. I'm not for taxes, or I don't think I'm not like thinking we should tax everything and more taxes, but since I'm paying taxes, I think we would be all better served if it was single payer. I think you're right on the single payer. I mean, I think they fell short on that, and they got us to where we are, And really the only direction we can head is either totally take it away or go to single payer. I feel like we can't stay where we are. It's not going to work where we are. We're not good. Go ahead, Mage.
Do you think that our greed or need to profit off of medical is what drives advancements of it, ultimately benefiting the entire planet?
Well,
Joe, go ahead.
when you bring up the greed aspect, Major, look no further than the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, you can't tell me that you go get, into another country, Mexico, Canada, wherever it may be, and you're paying, a fraction of the price.
Right, it's the same
for
medicine
some
and it
important
doesn't cost-
medicine
yeah.
that would
Right.
cost hundreds of dollars
Right, I
here.
agree with you. I mean,
And so,
I totally agree with you. But you're still kind of. I'll lump them all together and say, I'm just not on board with that profit, whether it be the pharmaceuticals or the insurance stuff. But to get back to your question, Mage, that you threw out there, is that a driving force for why we are so good on the high end of things like the specialties medicine?
Advancements.
I mean, yes, I think that's a factor. Money's always going to be a factor, especially in this country. Our economic system is built on capitalism, so of course that's going to be a factor. But I think that you can still have that be the motivating factor and do it in such different ways than we've done it. I'm again getting back to how my taxes would be used more wisely. I think I always use this NASA example. We have some amazing companies that are out there trying to explore space, like Elon Musk and his people and stuff. I just think that instead of us having NASA and us funding NASA and spending all that money on all the employees and all that stuff, let's free those great minds up, let them out in the free market, which is a very conservative thing, and then have the government spend a fraction of the money that they spend on the NASA budget, which I know we've cut, but theoretically if we were spending the right amount on it, and just award grants. Let's set markers. Like if you're whatever, I'm not up on this stuff, but like, hey, if you exceed this mark, like you can get a rocket out into space to do this, whatever it needs to do, orbit the planet or something, or if you could go halfway to Mars, and if people can reach markers, then we could, if we didn't fund, say, NASA, which I'm totally for space exploration, and I'm not against NASA, I'm just saying let's divert our money. So to get back to your point, I think we could still have that be the driving force. There can still be rewards. They're doing it, these companies, so they can be the first one to do it and then capitalize on that. They still can. And they'll still ultimately make more money being the first one to do it. But if along their way, if they're on their way to trying to do that stuff, then, so say we don't have any of the NASA budget, you're out there funding it yourself, and then you do something great like, hey, we reached this point in the thing, we'd be like, bam, here's $1 billion or whatever, something like that. And to tie it back to the medicine, it's like, I feel like the same thing. Yeah, you're out solving erectile dysfunction and hair growth, but let's make that not as lucrative. Like it'd be more lucrative to cure cancer. You'd be getting markers along the way. Sure, I mean, I guess there's going to be a market for those things. You can't stop that. But anyway, Joe, any thoughts on that?
No, I agree with a lot of points that you made. Health is important. To me, I think it's to anybody. Whatever political side you stay on. You all know somebody that has battled cancer. I just lost my dad to cancer, and so you want to see those breakthroughs. And I'm all for letting tax dollars fund and try to develop new techniques, experimenting with new drugs. That's an FDA thing, and
Right, right.
That's another
Right.
conversation. But try to be proactive, instead of reactive when it comes to health, and that falls on us too. Have some responsibility. Look, I smoke,
Yeah, I think we
all
got it
right,
backwards.
that's not healthy by
But
all
again,
means. But it's
I totally agree
but
with
it's a
everything you're
choice that I
saying right
have.
there. And to me, that comes back to the insurance and the profits. To me, we just have it backwards. And I've said this on this podcast before. Everything I pay a bill for every month, their goal is to never deal with me. Things go so well, I never call DirecTV, and I never call Verizon, I never call Comcast, because they're doing it so well. That's the way my doctor should be motivated. I should probably pay him a bill every month, and he should do his damnedest to keep me out of there. Instead, he only makes money when I come see him. You know,
Mhm.
so I mean, I agree with you that back to you that we have some responsibilities that we're not doing it like, you know, I've got plenty of them. I could list a million of them. Okay, we'll get back to the Trump stuff in a minute, but I want to switch gears here since we have a now an official world famous author. As he's looking up at the camera, taking a picture.
I was wondering if you saw the football thing, actually.
No. So, Mage, congratulations, and I
Thank
mean
you.
that. Like you wrote a book,
I did.
Amsterdam Acid.
Yes.
You had been working on it for how long?
Like 10 years.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
But how long till when you did you?
It's because I shelved it a lot.
But so
Like,
you like really wrote some stuff down, for 10 years.
Yes, little bits of work over 10 years, and then shelved it and didn't really like it.
And so, like towards the end, was that most of the writing, or really it was just a lot along the way?
It was probably 60% done for 7 years, and then actually Tammy, our friend Tammy, I was talking to her one night and told her I'm just kind of dead on it, and she asked me to start sending her 20 pages a month, and she'd go through them, and then we'd build on it from that. And she was really the one that like got me back into writing it and finishing it. So from that point, yeah, it was probably. Well, when I say 10 years, that's from when I first started to when it came out on print. The getting it printed part ended up taking like 2 years. So for 8 years, 6 years of 8 years, I had 60% of it done, and then I got the rest of it done in just a couple years.
So, like the stuff right now in the book at the very beginning, that stuff is stuff that was written as much as 10 years ago.
Yes,
That's pretty wild.
the very opening of the book was written back then. Yeah.
And so, just for anybody out there that doesn't know what's going on, just kind of the premise of the book.
Well, it's a fictional book to help me keep my job, based on a guy's trip to Amsterdam. Hunter Thompson's was a inspiration for me. And
I think he motivates you too.
yeah, yeah, fair enough.
You seem to have him down pretty good in your real life.
And so I kind of wanted to do something in the spirit of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but through my own experience, and that came through a couple trips to Amsterdam, which I melded into one story based on things that happened there.
And what percentage of it would you say is fiction?
Well, there's really, well, I'd say 80% of it's exaggerated. Nothing's really made up.
That's probably a better word than
10%
fiction. Even
is made up to make things work and to finish, and a lot of it's just inspired by things that happened that you just exaggerate to make a creative writing piece.
so, just as the reader, you're just going to follow this guy on a trip.
It's pretty much. It doesn't have a deep story. It's a book you can read while you're on the toilet. It's actually a great toilet book. You can read 3 pages or a page a day, and you'll never get lost or forget where you came from. You can just kind of pick up.
And I haven't read it, and I'm going to set this up because I really want to, because I'm a really big fan of your writing. But I do that with a lot of things that I really like. I'll save movies that I know are great just because I know I have a great movie to watch. And I as a friend, I wish I would have read it just as a friend and bought it by now, just to do that for you. But I'm really looking forward to it. So here's my question, having not read it. A lot like your normal writing, as far as I guess this is what I like about your writing a lot, is you take a lot of what seem mundane things or very ordinary things to people, and you just put a different perspective on them. Is that going on?
I think so. One thing I thought was cool, because it's a pretty silly book, but I was able to talk about worldviews, and they're the worldviews you get when you travel and you hear someone else's side of things. I mean, just one example that's within the book. In America, we're really caught up in saying to Europe and to France, if it wasn't for us, you would have lost the war. We love running that down their throats, and they know they deserve that round down their throats, but they also get a little tired of it. But you never really hear Americans also saying, if it wasn't for Russia, we wouldn't have won World War II. You know, it's just something that doesn't occur, and when you get over there, you realize there's a lot of different viewpoints to world views that we haven't been exposed to, and sometimes you agree with them, sometimes you don't. But when you do agree with them, it's pretty cool, because you're like, I've never had that worldview, and now I understand what you mean by that. So I kind of tie that into the book, kind of making fun of America, making fun of Europe, you know, the things we each.
And there's other travelers with the main character, yeah?
There is.
And these are loosely based off of people that have traveled over there with you at
Yes.
different times. And it was just all kind of merged into one.
Well, Thomas
story.
went with me on both trips. He's a main character, and then the other three main characters were between the two trips.
Right. So you just kind of merged it all into one.
Yes.
And
Over a poker game. of all
would you, if you had to, I mean, what genre? I mean, what do you say that somebody that's just saying, okay, what am I getting to? Or are they going to be surprised if they just open it up, or is it going to be funny? I mean, what do you think?
I think it's got. Well, I credit gonzo journalism within the book. That's just where you take a mundane thing and make yourself part of it, but make it fun to read. It opens up with drug references in the first couple sentences. So a lot of people have texted me and said, "Man, you didn't waste any time." And it's like, well, I'm trying to.
It was 10 years ago.
Yeah, right. It was much more irresponsible then.
Yeah.
But trying to hook people right off the bat.
Yeah, well, of
so.
course, that's the sound writing. But and I'm gonna hit back with that. This isn't specific to the book, but it's what makes me a fan of your writing. And Brian, who's sitting at the table with us, I've told him this. What I think, like my writing, I feel like I'm taking a subject that maybe people might not be that familiar with, and then I'm trying to present it to them in a way that maybe they'll be interested or try to understand it. I feel like that's how I normally write, especially on the social mediums and stuff. That's that's kind of what my thing is. And I feel like what you're doing is you're taking the very familiar and throwing it right back at people in a very different way. That, you know, you do it over and over again. I can give 100 examples, but, you know, the looking out, you know, your window at a dive motel in some third world country and just the amazing, beautiful view that you have, and you're just living life when most people would be like, never stay there, never go there, never,
right.
you know, never do it. Yeah, I hear you, but I mean, that's what you're doing. So congrats on that. Any other thoughts on the book?
Thank you. No, it's available on Amazon.
Yeah, and when you when and I'm not going to get into too personal in this, but like I've known people that have done books and they just kind of you know, I don't know, I've never written a book, so good for anybody that's done it, but then they'll put it out there and then people could buy it, then they're just making a few cents off everything. Like you kind of went the real route. Like you didn't come to terms with somebody one time, and then
got my contract canceled.
Yeah. You couldn't come to the contract, but like you actually do make money, and like not just a few cents. And we don't have to get into that. And you're not, obviously it's not going to be. You're not going to. And it's not about the money. I get that, but I'm saying, but like you. My only point is like you did this the real way. Like you said, I'm writing the book. I'm getting an illustrator. I'm getting an editor. I'm gonna get a real contract.
Yeah.
And I mean, so it's a real book. I mean, I mean, congrats. That's a big deal.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna come back to our guest here and what you're bringing to the table. And like we said this from the beginning was just your support of Trump. So here's where I'm at. Like, I'm to the spot, and I didn't think this all along. So I mean, it's just something that's developed. I'm to the point where I really think that this guy has committed like a lot of crimes. So Joe, what do you say to a guy like me? Like, I don't hate the guy. Like, I gave him the benefit of the doubt at the beginning. And let me say it this way. I'm of the opinion that of all these things that I think that are going to come out, and who knows what all of them are, but I think that if the dude would have came out from day one after he won the election and would have just said, look, I was rich and famous. I wasn't the most upstanding citizen. I've done a lot of things that you have found out some of them. That's in the past. I ran for president to change this country. So you can judge me on that if you want, or we can put that behind us and moving forward, I'm going to do what I think's best. I think the guy would have been liked by a ton of people. That's my opinion. I'm not a fan of his, but I think if he'd have just said all of that, I think he'd have been liked. Where I think we're at is those of you that like him kind of believe what I just said. Like you give him that benefit of the doubt without him saying that. You kind of realize you think that's what he's doing already. You think he did have a good life and he had it made and he didn't need any of this shit, so why would he do it unless he wanted to make us better? So you're giving him that benefit of the doubt, but he hasn't came out and said it. You guys just say it. But what he's done is he's just totally just dug in and only is talking to the people that support him now, and he's just trying to rile them up and fire them up. And we know he lies at a record-setting pace. We know that everybody around him is starting to get indicted. The person that he picked as our national security advisor has pled guilty. His campaign manager has been convicted. His personal lawyer of 10 years has pled guilty and has been sentenced already. And there's more and more, but I'm saying these are all his people. So I think he's a shady, shady dude. He's never came clean with us. I think it's going to get ugly for him. So what do you say to a guy like me that thinks that? Because there's a lot of people out there that think the way I'm thinking. Go ahead.
As far as General Flynn is concerned, tomorrow's a big day for him. Do you know?
Yeah,
okay.
He's getting sentenced. Yeah.
So he's going to get sentenced. That can be thrown out. Okay. We'll see. What I'm kind of curious about is how come the FBI didn't provide the 302s to the judge? The judge wanted all the evidence, and the only 302 they provided was written six months after the fact. For the listeners, a 302 is basically a summary that a FBI writes up about an interview. Okay, now, what crime did he really commit? I mean, he was a national security advisor that was simply talking to the Russian ambassador. As an incoming administration, that's what you do. So maybe I'm not privy to how protocols are set within the federal government.
Well, the crime that
I know there were some sanctions against Russia, prior to the
Turkey. It was for working on behalf of Turkey, on the benefit of Turkey, and then not informing us. Is just what it is. But regardless of all that, I mean, and I get you because you're getting into the weeds, you're getting into some specifics of this. But at a broader level, the person that's in charge of the FBI right now was appointed by President Trump. The person. I mean, everybody that's in charge
person
of the
currently.
Yes, I mean the person
that would be Ray, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, right now
it wasn't Comey, obviously.
Right. But Ray, the person in there right now, and he's all of the major law enforcement agencies are his appointees. The last one that allowed it to go on was his appointed attorney general,
Jeff Sessions.
You're right. I'm saying these are all people that he's put in charge. So to say that. When you're like I said, you're getting at the weeds. You're saying why the FBI do this? Why the FBI? I guess at a broader brush, the FBI is ran by people that he has put in charge. This isn't you would have some credence if these were leftovers over of Obama.
But we're talking about the Miller investigation and what we found out through what we know so far. What I know so far, that part of his team was extremely biased.
But Mueller is a Republican.
That doesn't matter. He's what we consider swamp. Swamp is the uniparty. It's it doesn't matter whether you're Republican, Independent, or Democrat. Is if you're all about the power structure in D.C. and do not want to give that up to keep the status quo, they'll do anything to stay in power.
But I mean, were you here before Trump became president? You're telling me that you trust this guy more than you trust our law enforcement agencies. You have some serious reservations about our law enforcement agencies.
At this point right now, yes, I do, because he's not part of
Trump. Did you question the FBI before Trump?
Or did I question the FBI before Trump? I thought when it came to Hillary's emails, look, the answer that Comey gave, this was 3 weeks before the actual election happened, was he called it a matter. They wouldn't say something like that when you have classified stuff. Okay.
But even and I'm going with you. I'm giving you the benefit.
But I just want to finish this.
No,
this
go ahead.
Last
go ahead.
Because if you're just an E3 in the Navy, right, and you take a photo in the wrong place on a submarine, you're in jail.
Yeah, okay.
So there's, I mean.
So
it
was
can't
that the
be-
beginning
there-
of it? Because that's fair.
Well, no,
but
it's how come we just kind of look at it like it's like, look,
No.
the rule of law has to apply to everybody.
I'm with you. I'm not even arguing that. I'm
Regardless
just
of-
saying, I'm trying to hone in on the moment where you started questioning the integrity of our FBI. And I'm not judging that. I'm just trying to hone.
You know,
so
honestly,
like you're saying, like, and I get your
Jason,
point.
Jason,
on,
honestly,
like the Hillary
the
thing.
fact.
you're like
Okay,
that-
this is
you're like, that's
this is not
political.
even part of the Trump, the politics. You got to look at Las Vegas, that shooting. We don't know anything. And what the hell is going on? And so I'm at the point right now, just where I have to question everything. I can tell you this.
But that's-
this
fairly
2019 is
recent.
going to be a crazy year. Put on your helmet.
Right.
I mean,
but like you're 40. Like, but at 30, would you say, like, if the FBI said this is the way it is, at 30 you would probably say, okay, that's the FBI.
well, we know this, that within the government, we've been lied to. Okay. Now the FBI, Mueller also said there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That's a fact. He was one of the persons that
Right.
we believe that.
I get you on all that. I'm trying to figure out, like, were you always let's just go back to at 30.
I
Did
didn't
you have
follow
your
politics.
suspicions of the FBI?
I don't follow politics even to a point like I follow it now
Okay,
because it's so crazy nowadays. You
I
just
get
can't
you.
help it. But
So what's going on now? Like when you started following it with Hillary's emails and those things, what you've learned makes you suspicious of them. This isn't something that's always been this way with you. It's just once you started following it, then you're like, I don't trust these guys that much.
okay, in the case with Flynn, his sentencing has been put off at least twice, as I know it. Right? Why? They don't tell you that.
Well, because they're working with him. I mean, they're holding it over his head for sure.
But it seems like every other guy that they get, we're working with it. Okay, Papa, whatever his name is, the
Yeah.
Greek fellow.
Yeah.
He got 2 weeks
Yeah.
in prison.
Yeah.
Okay, Manafort did something that they all had nothing to do with the
But
campaign.
these were all people-
Cohen, the same thing. It had something to do with his shady cab company. Yeah, they're all tied to Trump, but it had nothing to do with Russian collusion.
But
and we were
we only know
we,
of the stuff
we
that
were
had
told
to know with the
that
collusion.
Miller was his scope of the investigation was limited.
Look, if it was wrapped up tomorrow, and that was the extent of the investigation, I would 100% agree with everything you've just said. What a colossal waste of time. This shit happens all the time, and why did we go to all this? Like, I totally agree with you, but it seems like the Trump supporter seems like that it's all out there, and this is all that's known, and even Trump says no collusion. Dude, they're laying it out like just perfectly. Like again, I used to be in law enforcement, and like Mueller is amazing at the way he's prosecuting this. He's getting people to roll over and over and over again, and that's why I didn't think he was going to get Trump originally. But the people that he's letting get off and not do time, and the other people that are doing the time, it seems to me like it's going up to Trump, and definitely his family. Do you feel like that's happening?
No. We obviously have a different perspective
That's why
because
that's why
what
you're a guest.
I see him just. It seems like his whole team is just tripping all over themselves.
Mueller.
Yeah.
You're saying that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So
time will tell, and I think
Yeah,
the
for
time
sure
is
on that.
coming really close now because this has been building up.
I agree
in-
with you
in-
on that.
in-
It does need to, at some level, wrap
because
up.
we know this
I
that
mean,
the president is privy to classified information, right? Don't think that he didn't see the FISA documents, right?
I think he gets
And
stuff.
that's really like the pinnacle of this
Yeah,
whole
I think he gets some of that
investigation.
stuff.
So it's now it's a game of chicken. That's how I perceive it. He's like, look, you do what you need to do, but there's going to come a point where, like either shit or get off the pot, so to speak, and because otherwise I'll release these.
And I think that's fair. But so here's what I'm saying.
and let the people judge
if
for
the
themselves.
Mueller investigation came to a close tomorrow, and Robert Mueller's team wrote
It
up
won't
this
come
thing,
to
but
close
just
tomorrow.
hypothetically, and he says, we've turned over every rock, and it wasn't pretty, and we've got some guys for the things they've done, but ultimately at the end of the day, I don't feel like Trump really did anything that was really against the best interests of our country, and he wasn't really crooked. I'm telling you that that would make me happy. Like,
But don't hold your breath
no,
for him
I-
to say
I
that.
know.
It's not going to happen.
I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be that clear at all, whatever he does say, no matter what. But I'm saying, but if hypothetically, if he came out and he said that, that would make me happy, and I would trust his findings. I mean, I'm telling you the truth. I really would. So what I'm asking you is, if it came out tomorrow and he said Trump committed 15 felony crimes and his family committed 5 felony crimes and they're all criminals, you wouldn't believe that. I mean, is that fair or not fair? You think Mueller's tainted? I mean, the whole investigation.
That would be a bombshell of all bombshells.
Yeah, for sure. And I went overboard.
But okay, I
yeah,
gotcha,
I
gotcha.
would try to go overboard. I mean, I made something up, but I'm saying
Okay.
I would believe
Then-
him if he said nothing happened.
And then
but
then
you wouldn't believe him if he said something
then-
did happen, right?
then let's follow the Constitution then. Okay, and I'm hey, that Kavanaugh thing, that was a little shady. All right, we have a thing called due process. Now I could have wrote all kinds of stuff about
I
that
agree.
Evanetti guy, whatever he did. But you know what? Let the court do its thing, and so I just laid off because it was just going to start another shitstorm on Facebook. So I just don't.
I got
okay?
you. But
okay.
if he came out tomorrow and
But
Mueller said he did a bunch
he's
of
got to
crimes,
have some good evidence because
so
look, you're
what would
talking about an individual that's been in the spotlight for 30 plus years.
well, what would
and
it take for you? Like what?
just the evidence and make sure you have a solid case.
But like just I mean this is all hypothetical,
That-
and
that's
I'm not.
what
And,
it-
and again, I'm telling you, I hope he didn't do anything. That I'm not just saying that. That'd be awesome. I would feel great if Mueller said everything was fine. Trump did some knucklehead stuff, but he really honestly tried not to do anything wrong. But if like what evidence? Like if he said we have recordings, we have witnesses, we have a money trail, and he was in contact with the Russians, he was in contact with the Saudis, he did this. Like, what would it take for you to say, yeah, man, this guy probably broke some laws?
Of all the things you listed, the recordings, that's kind of a given. Now I know that you can impersonate, whatever, but I mean
If you heard
they
him
know,
saying
they-
some stuff,
they
like, that
they
would
know.
bother
I mean,
you.
because Alec Baldwin does a pretty damn
But-
good Trump. I mean, I don't like the guy, but
so
I mean,
like when
you
we
got to
have
hand it to him. He
recordings
can
of him
impersonate
with-
him pretty
when
good.
we have recordings with him with Cohen and the hush money, and you listen to him
Well,
admitting
that's
crimes,
a good point right there.
you're
Because
just saying
on your
that's
last
not really a
podcast, you
crime.
brought that up. Well, keep in mind now we're comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah.
But Barack Obama had to pay off Reverend Wright, his Chicago kind of like mentor when he was coming up through politics. Be like, hey, we kind of know you're a radical, so if you can just,
All right.
because I still got to get moderate and independence, to get on my team. So they paid him, some amount of money. That's what happens in politics. So now, the legality of all that stuff, I do not know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how campaign finances work. I know,
Right,
that you do get fined. I know the last president got
but
fined.
to get back to your point, you said it would take like tapes, like hearing him say it. So when we do have a tape
That
of
paper
him
trail
saying
also
it,
a legit paper, because there
But-
was that story that was debunked.
but
that
it's
was
on-
fake.
but it's on
It
the-
was through that bank. What was the bank?
Joe, I'm just trying to figure
Okay.
out what like. Again, I'm not trying to make it any way you don't want it to be. I
But
mean, I don't
you
want
have
to.
to-
I
you
don't
have
want
to
it
think
to
that-
not
that-
be how you want it
that
to be.
some of his supporters, like myself, are going to be skeptical because how many times on the news it's like bombshell breaking.
I
This could
get
be
you.
the
The
end,
news,
and
the news is like MSNBC's rooting for
Well,
the
I
day
mean,
that he gets overthrown.
I'm talking
I mean,
like
I hear you.
all like the conglomerate news ones. It's you can go to your like
D-
your
d-
smaller.
where do you get your news?
Huh?
Like, where's your news sources?
Have you ever heard of One American News?
No,
It's called.
but
OWN.
that's fine.
Okay.
Whether I heard it or not. I'm just
there's some Reddit subs I get on, because a lot of people.
do you watch
contribute.
Fox?
No, I don't have a TV.
So why does
That's weird.
well, why? Like, to me,
Honest to
it
God,
seems
Banks, I
like
don't.
no Trump people that I personally met. Obviously, it's just my personal own,
Now
story,
Tucker
my
Carlson,
anecdote.
like I know his
But
stick.
why
and,
don't
like,
Trump people say they watch Fox? It trips me out. He watches Fox.
Oh, he loves Fox and Friends, yeah.
appoints Fox.
He
people to
promoted them
his
yesterday,
cabinet.
but
So
that's
I
let
haven't
him
met
do.
a Trump guy that watches Fox yet. That's weird.
Well,
So you don't get mainstream news. Do you think the sources you get them from have a slant at all? Do you feel like the sources you're going to are down the middle? Like, what do you
no,
feel? I don't know.
It's what I tend to believe. Like I've even gone on. Are you familiar with 4chan?
No.
4chan's like an anonymous website, right? Where people just have like this long number that's like their whatever their identity, and they'll write stuff. And sure enough, this guy called it, and he made complete sense. He's like, Trump got invited to that Forbidden City when he was on his first trip to China, and this was all about trying to strike a peace deal with North Korea. And that made complete sense to
That's
me.
just
But
breaking news.
it makes you wonder, like, was this like an insider in Washington that actually, like, like knows the and just has to, like, just can't keep a secret, but has to go on. There's stuff like that it makes me think. But I like that stuff. I mean, the
So-
conspiracy things. I mean, there's some things that are so, like, absurd. Like you get Alex Jones, right? Like he's like
Right.
like pretty, like, far out there, but he does have an audience.
Right. Major?
I just got breaking news that Bill Cosby has created a Christmas album.
Are we going to get to hear it?
Here it is. Hot off the press. You heard it here first.
Well, I guess it's time to leave. Oh, but it's snowing out there. But I need to get home. But it's snowing out there. I really should go. What's the hurry? Hey, what's in this drink? That's just some Jell.
That's a good one. He made that from in prison.
I'm in prison.
That's a good
All
one.
Proceeds go to male impotence.
Okay, so our last topic, I asked you, Joe, like, what's something that, like, in this environment that you would like to hit on, so go at it.
Comedy and politics, it's lacking, and I'm as guilty as all, because there's been some Facebook arguments that, looking back, it's just they were uncalled for. But when you talk about, like, late night shows, Saturday Night Live and stuff like that, the jokes are not what they used to be, and I love Saturday Night Live. Going back from the early '90s, the Dana Carveys, and the Phil Hartmans, and it was, it was funny. It was funny back then, and nowadays it just seems like it's geared for one side, and that one side, I don't even know if that other side that it's geared for, they even laugh, because it just seems, I don't.
So, I mean, what's your, like, the president just said that he wanted to go after, like, SNL and the news people. Like, do you think we should go after them, or you
No.
just think it's a talent thing?
No, because they're based off ratings, okay, the popularity of that show, and so let the people decide, okay. Like I said, it's a fair market. Like, Nike has every right to hire Colin Kaepernick. It's the same thing, whether it's going to help him or hurt him, we'll see, in the long run. That's marketing,
So what about
You
it?
take risks.
Like, what about it bothers you then? Just that it's just not good, or that they're trying to go at what they're trying to go at? What about it's the not cool part to you?
What I see is I can't explain why it's just not funny to me, because, I mean, there's jokes that you can poke at Republicans in general. Like, okay, remember the mega bomber? Remember the van he had? Okay, so if Steve Bannon was a transformer, he would be that mega van.
Right.
I mean, you can make, there's jokes about, even the Barron Trump, like some good-hearted jokes, like, hey, what's it like in school for him? Well, it must suck because, half the school hates you, the other half wants to bang your mom. Jokes like that.
Right.
You
Yeah, I
know,
hear you
and-
on the
and
kids
So
and
there's
stuff,
still
but-
lighthearted. I know you're supposed to stay off of the
Yeah.
president's kids, but I mean, even that you could tell, like, in a certain setting with people with all different, political beliefs, and they'll still chuckle, because
Oh, I get
there's some
you in a
truth into
certain
it. There's some
environments.
truth into it. I mean, every once in a while, Saturday Night Live does have a good skit. like the election night skit was pretty funny to me, because it showed, like, the urban city, where it's like, oh, we got this. And it's like, well, and Dave Chappelle's like, well, it's a pretty big country.
What about like Jimmy Kimmel, who goes at the president a lot, and Seth Meyers goes at the president?
I think, well, okay, Jimmy Kimmel, in his defense, I think healthcare it's near and dear to him,
Right.
with his son. But then again, Jimmy Kimmel is, he's got the means and the resources that he can provide the best healthcare, and that that's fortunate for him.
But
and
do you
that-
think
and,
their stuff's funny when they're going at the president more than, like, Saturday Night Live stuff?
Well, I mean, I haven't looked at the ratings. I mean, you can look at the ratings at some of these award shows that they've been tanking, because it turns into, like, more or less like a political rally than it would about, like, awarding and appreciating good, arts and cinema.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you.
But then again, I mean,
I hear you on the things.
they have writers on Saturday Night Live. I'm
everything's
not
been
talking about the
political.
actors themselves. The actors portray what is written by whoever they have writing the
Oh, a
jokes.
lot of those guys are actually writing it too. Well, I mean, I hear you. They do have writers, but then a lot of those guys bring just their writing talents to the show. Major, do you think anything on this subject at all? Just the late night scene, where they're headed, their direction,
Not really. They're slanted against Trump, I notice. But
and
I,
so as a guy like so that Joe, who's a Trump guy, that says that bothers him, like
Well, it does, I mean, bothers me
It's-
that I like I said, I miss the old Saturday Night Live. You know,
I hear you, I
wasn't
get
really
it.
never a late night.
sometimes
person.
people want to watch those shows as an escape, and maybe someone's liked that show forever. They're not
Right.
really big into politics. That can kind of turn
well,
you
and
off.
it's like just he tells us one of the reasons he's on the show. He's a Trump guy, so he's just a Trump guy. He votes for Trump, but then he can't even watch the shows he wants to watch, Saturday Night Live and Kimmel and Seth Meyers. I mean, so obviously
Colbert and
yeah,
stuff.
stuff like that. Yeah, I hear you. So, but is that a problem major for you, or is that just where we are? Like, I mean, I get you because I mean, I watch those guys and die laughing, but then you have a guy sitting here saying, "Kind of sucks for me."
Well, one thing I've noticed, especially on Facebook, I'm really trying to watch behaviors on Facebook, and like we have one friend that daily posts multiple anti-Trump posts, like it's become his personality thing, I believe. And it's easy for me to scroll by him. I get nothing from him, but it doesn't even really bug me. But I've got friends that post multiple pro-Trump things, and I get annoyed by them. And I get drawn into arguments with them when I didn't really want to. I'd rather not see politics on Facebook either, I think, unless I secretly get off. I don't know. I think we're prone when it's our ideology not being mocked, it's easier to say, hey, it's a joke, you know, they do it to everyone. And then when it is your ideology being mocked, we're probably just prone to kind of think negative about the mocking. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah,
I
it's
noticed-
just something that I wouldn't have thought of as an issue. But when I say, "What do you want to talk about?" and he's just like, "This stuff kind of sucks for me."
Yeah.
You know,
I
like
could see that.
these
Like-
shows. So,
but like
so
he
I'm like,
says, he
okay.
wants to
and so
watch-
here's something
I
that we're not
understand-
even bringing up as an issue.
Yeah.
We're bringing up these other things.
I,
and he's
I
just like,
understand that
yeah,
conservative comedians are hard to come by.
yeah, no
So-
kidding.
Because they're not funny.
No
I
kidding.
mean,
Dennis Miller's like pretty funny.
He was.
well,
Yeah, I hear you. I liked him on,
No,
on Monday Night
you're right.
Football
I'm
too.
just-
But
Dennis,
I,
Dennis,
so I'm
well, see,
kinda
Dennis
weird.
Miller, like
Smart ass.
like Mage. I mean, pretty much have to be like a walking thesaurus
Yeah, I
to
hear
get
you.
his jokes.
Yeah, I
on,
get
on
you.
some
That
points.
that's his
Yeah.
downfall. It's his audience too. Hey, man, I think that's about it. Unless anybody has anything else. Major has a book, Amsterdam Acid. Joe Wallace, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me,
doing
guys.
this,
Yeah,
man. I
that
mean,
was awesome.
I'm just gonna. I probably should have said this at the beginning, but I'll say it at the end now. If it was me and I was the one that got this guest for this show, like in my mind, I'm done with Trump people. That's where I'm at. I'm just like, I'm going to wait until whatever happens, and then we'll pick up the pieces. So this isn't the route I would have gone, but obviously I totally trust these guys. When Major says, hey, this guy's going to be a good guest, and he's a Trump guy, I'm like, okay, because we've done Trump guests before. I mean, I like to bring people. But, I mean, I really am thankful, and I'm glad that we did go this route, because regardless of what it is that we think, it still boils down to we have to sit down and talk to each other and have a good time and figure out the things that we do agree on, and we agree on way more than we disagree on, and we see that over and over again when we have people sit here. So I mean, I can't thank you guys enough for putting it on. I can't thank you enough for coming, and we won't wait as long until we do our next one. All right,
Good.
Thanks everybody.